So hello, welcome to another live IATEFL chat. And I'm joined with Laura Baecher and Steve Mann, who are going to tell us all about video observation and how it can be used for reflection and for teacher development. Thank you so much for talking to us this afternoon. It's lovely to see you both. I just wanted to start with a question about how the two of you met, because Steve, you're at the University of Warwick, and Laura, you're in New York City University. How come the collaboration?
Well, I think we did a project with the British Council called Video in Language Teacher Education, the VILTI project, and it was a video-based project, so we wanted to find good practices from around the world which were using video in different ways in teacher development and reflection. And I think I talked to Tom Farrell, who's always helpful, well-connected. He works in Canada, but he's got good fingers into the TESOL world, and he said Laura Baecher's really good. She works in New York and she works a lot with video, and actually I'd read a couple of her articles and thought, wow, that'd be a really good person to have involved, and she was super happy to be involved. And we wanted videos. She produced a video. We had a template, maybe about 10 minutes, and you did one, and it had a series of steps on, and it's actually one of the first ones that I show people, because it's really clear about the steps and procedures that you can use to make video helpful for teachers that maybe haven't used it before. Anyway, that's my memory. I don't know whether it's exactly the same.
Thank you. It is. I mean, Steve is very well known in the field, and when I heard that he was doing a project specific to video, I was very excited to be part of it. And I think there's not enough collaboration sometimes between the sort of TESOL US kind of I guess engagements and here in Europe. With
it's not super common, really, is it, to have that cross collaboration, especially between the universities?
Yeah.
So how long have you been working together?
I'd say about five or 6 years now.
Yes, and I actually got to go to Warwick, and I called it Warwick, and I realized very quickly when the cabbie said, "Where are you going?" To Warwick. He's like, "I've never heard of it." What? I'm here. Where are you taking me? So Warwick, I got to go and actually do a talk on video, and especially its use in feedback when you've been when you're observing or what we call supervising teachers, and that was wonderful. So that was before the pandemic, a few years, maybe a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and I remember Laura spent some time with the Hornby Scholars, because we're lucky enough to have the Hornby Scholars. We've had them for the last 7 years at Warwick, and a lot of them are interested in video and teacher education. And Laura did this talk, but also ended up on a train journey to IATEFL with, and spent ages with them, and they talked about it for months afterwards. Laura this, Laura that. So
that was my first IATEFL, is when I came to speak at Warwick, and then I added that on because I knew I was going to come to IATEFL for the first time. And we presented together there as well on video. And another colleague of yours, Adam, or?
Yeah, Adam Edmet.
Yes.
He's British Council as well.
And that was, it was a wonderful experience to be at IATEFL for the first time. So this is my second time.
So this is IATEFL Birmingham?
That was Brighton, I think.
Was it in Brighton?
Liverpool.
Was it?
Yeah, I've only been to Liverpool.
Did you do the one with Tetty as well?
No, I met her then. I know no one's interested. Sorry, everyone. But yeah, these are the connections and the memories you get from attending the conference, and that's what's nice to be here.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it goes back a long way. Just John Fanislow, who's kind of the godfather, really, of using video. I didn't know this when I first met Laura, but I talked to him in Japan about video. He's in his 80s now, and he still uses video and always has done. So this isn't kind of a particularly new thing. Some people have been using video for teacher development a long time. But I didn't realize that you had such a personal connection with John as well. And that was interesting.
That was really nice. Yeah, John was my mentor on my doctoral program. And when I was a new teacher, so this brings us back to the topic today, I was a student teacher in 1994, and there was an intense focus on observation as part of our practice teaching component. one phase was teaching in a room that had a one-way mirror. We went in, there were lessons going on for community-based English learning, free for the public. So there was lessons that were running in this space, but we would come in and teach, and the rest of our classmates would be on the other side of the window, including John. So we were sort of watched as a group without it disrupting the classroom.
And it was actually a mirror, so
Yes,
you could see yourself as well.
No, it was just like a dark, you wouldn't know kind of a thing, but you knew it was more of like what you see on Law and Order or something, you know, like a lineup, so you can see it in one way. And then we would be videoed with the big tripod and the big camera, the VHS tapes.
Yeah, with the cassette. Yeah.
Yes, with the cassette. And that was a real desensitization that we all went through as part of that. And I know we talk about that a lot too, because an initial concern that people have, they'll say, well, yes, I can understand watching myself on video is going to be helpful, because otherwise, how will I ever see myself teach? But it's, the students aren't going to like it, and they're not going, it's going to be a phony lesson, and I have to get permission, and there's a lot of this kind of, so right off the top, I think it's important to desensitize you and your students, bring in, and now you don't have to schlep in a huge camera.
No, it's super easy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But hang on, so I just wanted to know, how are you using video? We're talking a lot about using it, but how are you actually doing it? Because I've got some experience, and it's sometimes a little bit tricky. So I'm very interested to know what you guys are doing.
Do you want to start?
Sure. Well, I guess similarly, so that was many years ago. And then when I went into teacher education, I noticed how little video was really being used. And when you think about how complex the work of teaching is, we know that, for example, someone who is going to be an actor, or someone who's learning to play golf, they'll use lots of video so they can watch themselves and learn. And teaching is so much more complex because you have many, many other people in the room, and you get a lot of input from people coming to observe you, but you don't get to really be empowered to watch your own students and yourself except through video. So in our teacher education program, it's a vital component of the work. So I work with teachers in a master's program. They are there a couple of years, I would say, about 2 years, 4 semesters or so. And in the very first class, they take a TESOL methods course. They work with small groups, and they have to video only about 20 minutes, working with their small group, because from the outset, we want them to see how powerful a tool it is. And then they'll do things like they'll watch the video and not have to share it with anyone. It's just, what was the experience like for you? And then we work up to sharing it with someone else in the class, until we then put it up and look at it for material. And honestly, one clip of 5 minutes is a whole session of conversation. So it's not a matter of, I have to video for this whole, even if you just put your camera on as you open a lesson and then turn it off, you have a lot of rich material there. And I always present a video clip of myself first teaching, so that we realize it's not to criticize each other. It's not that there's a right or wrong. It's really about noticing.
I mean, that's fantastic, I think, because if you present a model, then the students can see, okay, so they've done it, I know what's expected, and then take it from there. And sorry, Laura, are they micro teaching when they first video themselves, or is it just general group work?
We don't really do micro teaching anymore.
Right. Okay.
We do a clinical fieldwork component for every course. So, but the micro teaching is it's a wonderful environment to begin doing it. But no, we actually start right away with students videoing.
Okay.
Okay, well, I work primarily at a university, so I don't tend to work with pre-service teachers in that kind of real kind of day-to-day, you do a class, we record it. I tend to use it in the MA and with PhD students. The long-term project I guess I've been involved with Steve Walsh is how to make reflective practice a bit more data-led, a bit more collaborative. And video is particularly helpful because it gives you something concrete that maybe steers you away from your ideas about teaching in a general way, or anecdotes about things that you did sometime, but locks you onto a piece of data so you can make, either with transcription sometimes or with just detailed noticing of what happens, you can have much more interesting and data-led conversations. And I think that's a real key for moving reflection away from an individual kind of journal writing process to a collaborative, spoken, data-led process. So there's that. But also, I think universities for years and years have been dominated by written texts, and the idea that you read texts and somehow regurgitate or be critical about them. And I think bringing a more digital experience into university is really important. And things like portfolio assessments, and we do a lot of screen capture where the students create videos, and that's part of their assessed work. And that's been really important to say it's not just about individuals writing text. What we need to build their skills in being digital and using video, either to comment on it or making it.
And how easy is it for the students to learn to reflect together? Because when you give feedback, it's a very personal thing, isn't it? That's just to you. And sometimes students don't want everybody else to be given the feedback. Does it take them a long time to adjust and to be able to reflect as a group? They don't mind it, or is it tricky?
Well, I guess in my context and experience, I would say that you have to have a kind of a principled approach, which is that it's not about judging, it's not about evaluation, it's about description. And helping teachers learn to describe without judgment and inference is the most challenging component, because those who are, let's say, in a school leader position, or they might be a university-based supervisor. They have some training in classroom observation. Perhaps they've taken qualitative methods, but a teacher generally has no training on observation. The teachers aren't even trained to observe students well. So the really important components have to be laid down, or ways of looking. And things like showing a quick clip. I usually start with just a photo. What do you see? And we're all going to see some things we would share, but a lot is individual. So we realize, just as Steve was saying, video is just another form of text. Yeah. I'm going to bring my schema to it. I'll bring what I know, what is important to me, what's salient to me. But once you say, wow, I see that now too. So I realized there was always much more there that I didn't see. Yeah. And that's where the peer conversation is so insightful, and you actually crave it. You want other people, just like if you wrote an essay, you need someone to look at it. And this is just another form of looking.
Yeah, but I think one of the reasons why I was attracted to Laura's work is she's really good at having a series of steps, which I think if you're doing task-based learning, for example, you don't just say do the task. It's structured in maybe a series of 4, and it's structured in a particular way. If you go and see Jane Willis in her session today, she will take you through in the workshop maybe 4 stages of how to get people working in a task-based way. And using video is exactly the same. Is it, as a teacher educator, you need to have a clear sense of what you need to do first and what comes well second. And I think that sense of structure, step, process is what the Vilti project was all about. It was trying to find some ways that teacher educators are successfully doing this. They're not just saying, go and watch a video and then have a reflection. It's very structured, and that structure helps, I think, for teachers to maybe feel less self-conscious or less kind of worried about, am I reflecting the right way here?
Well, I mean, this is I don't know how you feel, but certainly reflection, I know it's been around for a long time, but it's much more on my radar now. It's all about reflection in teacher education. And I don't think it's necessarily something that comes supernaturally. And as you say, you need to be shown in a way how to do it.
Yeah.
So with video, can definitely help.
And one of the things that video can do is that you can use vignettes where you can see two teachers talking together. And you can see maybe the transcript of the video of what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And a good example of that is like stimulated recall in research. And I work with quite a lot of PhD students. Jason Anderson would be a good example. He's here at the conference. He uses a lot of video where he sits down with the teacher and really tries to get behind what they were trying to do. Mm-hmm. And what you notice is that often somebody hasn't really realized why they do something until they actually see it. And that dialogic reflection with the artifact, this is something we're always talking about, the importance of the artifact, the video or the text or the transcript, and being able to look at it in a slightly different way. That's what creates a data-led reflection rather than one where I'm just saying the first thing that comes into my head.
Absolutely. And I think video allows you to answer the question of, well, how do you know? Because we have feelings that it went well or it didn't, but you want the evidence. You want to be able to actually see it and say, that's the turning point.
Yeah. And Steve Walsh talks a lot about that evidence. And I don't know whether you know his set model, but with a tool like VO, for example, you can capture the video and develop a tag set so that you're directing the novice teachers to look for particular things, whether it's echoing or teacher talk time or giving instructions. You're setting the agenda for them and giving them a tagging system or an observational system where they're developing their language, their vocabulary in order to do that reflection.
It's such a powerful tool. It really, really is. I do wonder though, when you have students involved in the video itself, do you need permission in order to be able to film? I mean, how does all this work? Because the students we work with sometimes are reluctant. They don't want to get the students involved because of GDPR. And so it's a tricky issue. How do you deal with that?
Well, the way that, first of all, absolutely, you need consent. Of course, if they're minors, you need, parental or guardian consent. And for adults too, you need consent. But I think most people will offer consent when they know it's for the teacher's learning and teacher growth. And that the video has to also be owned and controlled by the teacher. It's not something where it's going to go externally or go out there on the web or something. But I think what can be very helpful with that is actually using clips back to the students. So if you're teaching an English language development lesson, why not show the students the video and let them do some of the unpacking of what's happening in the lesson. So they'll start to realize what a rich material it is and have a little more buy-in. But you can also, especially with Zoom and the online video conferencing, and we've been teaching so much that way, and we probably continue to do that. It's so easy. You don't have to carry that big camera into the room. So you can easily just have some people turn off their cameras. It's amazing how much you can, how much material there is for analysis, even if it's just the teacher presenting and hearing the student voices. You don't even necessarily need to see the students.
Well, I mean, it's incredible. And Steve, when you said as well that you can transcribe it, I mean, you can conversation analysis it and, looking at anything, interaction, the whole lot. So it's fascinating what you can do.
Yeah, and it's getting easier. I mean, something like Otter AI actually does a good job of giving you a first transcription of a classroom event or a focus group or two people talking. So it's getting easier. I mean, transcribing's never been fun, but really,
I don't know.
really taking a small piece of data and transcribing it can be really eye-opening. We run a course called Spoken Interaction. I share it with Tony Lideker, and the students always think, oh, what's the point of this module? But by the end of it, when they've captured a piece of data and they've transcribed it and they've done the analysis of it, they say, wow, I've spent 20 years learning English, but I've never really understood how spoken interaction works. I knew I can write an essay, but I've never really thought about how speech is different from writing.
And just building on that, when you think about TTT, teacher talk, which is always this struggle. Just pulling off and seeing the number of turns you took or how long your passage is versus your student utterances, which were all one word, that goes a lot further than someone telling you, maybe you shouldn't talk as much in your lessons. When you see it, it's very, very powerful. So I think it's really a learner-focused kind of a tool. It can really speed up and catalyze teacher awareness much more than me telling you about what I saw in your lesson can do. So I think it's worth that effort, like you said, for the consent. And just to go back to what you said earlier about the comfort level and what Steve's talking about with the artifacts, one of the most challenging things about giving feedback is saving face, and you have to sort of comply because I'm your supervisor or your observer, and I don't want to hurt your feelings. So not a lot is actually said. In fact, a lot of times teachers don't even remember what was said afterwards. No notes are taken, even if you just videoed your conference so that the teacher could look at it later. But if you think about that object, whether it's a lesson plan, a piece of student work, a photo of the classroom, or video clip, it actually diverts the face-threatening aspect because we're turning to this third point, and that's what Vygotsky calls the mediation triangle. So it's not just you and me having this talk, it's us about this object over here, which actually enables us both to say more. And I think that's where in a group, when we place the artifact, doesn't have to be from any of us. It could be, this was another teacher's lesson plan. This is another teacher's student work. And it helps us learn how to have those professional conversations and build a shared vision. Because if you have 20 teachers in the school and they all have their own ideas about things, and then the people observing them have their own ideas, it's very hard to advance an agenda, without that shared vision.
Yeah, absolutely. And it adds to the whole kind of idea of social learning, which was Vygotsky 100%. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I mean, it's so powerful. And my favorite thing about video is that it's free, which is my favorite price as well. So it's a great thing to use.
Yes.
Do you two have anything else in the pipeline?
Well, we have a book coming out, which is finished, but it's creeping its way through production and should be out next year, called Video in Language Teacher Education.
Okay.
And it's co-written with Cecilia Nobre, who's coming to do a PhD next year at Warwick using VO. And we've got quite a few students who are looking at some aspect of video, Iris Connect VO, looking at tagging, different ways of working with in-service and pre-service teachers. So a lot of those, the book has got lots of vignettes in it where we've got practitioners' voices. It's not all us just talking about video. And that's a big thing, I think. We've got lots of data in it, lots of other voices. And I think we're really happy with the way it's turned out.
Yes, it's a rich book with a lot of, I think, very cutting edge and sort of taking this idea, as you said, reflection's been around for a long time, but giving a lot of real practical and evidence-based ideas. And then we also have a special issue of the TESOL Journal coming out, a collaboration, again, IATEFL and TESOL, that's going to be also with Fiona Copland. And we're going to have a focus on observation and feedback. And we're hoping video is going to play a role in some of those submissions. So I hope some people who are listening to this will submit to that as well. That call is coming out soon.
Well, there's lots to look forward to. And yes, video observation is the way forward. Thank you both very, very much.
Thanks
It's been super interesting listening to you. All the best. Enjoy the conference.
And
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.